And welcome into another episode of Tiger Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network, a Detroit Tigers podcast. Kieran Steckley here, Cody Stavenhagen, Austin Jackson, and joining us for the first time, your voice of the Detroit Tigers, Andy Dirks. How you doing?
Doing outstanding, gentlemen. You said the voice of the Tigers. I haven't. That hasn't resonated with me yet. But I feel like I have to talk different from the voice of the Tigers.
Well, you're stepping into a bigger role. It's not a new role, but a bigger role here, Andy. And I'm just curious, what's your offseason been like? Knowing that you're going to be, like I said, well, not just one of the voice, but kind of one of the face of Tigers baseball over there at FanDuel.
Yeah, pretty similar to last offseason. I got 4 kids that I chase everywhere, the real estate business. But I have, knowing that I got a little bigger role, probably kept up with some off-season moves a little bit more than last year. But I was doing the radio side, before. They just asked me to do a couple games, which led to a couple more. And now, finally, they said, hey, we're I don't know if we're dumb enough to try you on TV, but something along those lines. And it's like when there's no other guys to fill a role and you just happen to be there, they're like, we ain't got nobody else. Put Dirks over there. Let's do it.
Should probably give yourself a little more credit, Andy. You were a big hit on the broadcast, especially in the booth with Benetti, the tail end of last season. But I'm curious, is this something you ever imagined yourself doing when you were playing or after your career ended? Is this an avenue you saw for yourself?
No. Not at all. I mean, other than now that I look back, so when I was a kid in grade school, I always was in trouble because I talked too much. And AJ can probably attest to the fact that I can be a bit of a blabbermouth, like I'm being right now. I don't know when to stop. So the teachers would say, go in the corner. You got to pay attention. And one teacher specifically said, hey, you got to learn not to talk so much or it's not going to work out well. And now I get paid to talk. It was like, hey, there's a place for everybody. I just didn't know that was where it was going to be for me.
Hey, I got one for you though, Dirks. As a former player, what are some things you think that have helped you since you have played at that level with broadcasting?
I mean, as far as an analyst perspective, it would be very difficult to do that job unless you've been in that box, unless you've roamed that outfield, played in the infield, whatever it was. At that level, there's just a certain way that I think a player sees the game. And, from the time you're in it young, but especially when you get into professional baseball, because college baseball is different than professional baseball. And then from AAA to the big leagues is a big jump. Like now that I look back and I can kind of reminisce on, my career, I'm like, man, there are things you learn just because you're in it every day, talking it. Like we were in the hotel rooms talking about, where's the arm here? Where's this here? And now that I've kind of transitioned out of baseball for a while and not really been in the game per se, but more in like a working environment, it's like that's what I do every day. You start getting good at that. And I just can speak to things that from a player's perspective that the fans probably wouldn't understand, like how you deal with failure, that these are human beings out here. Like 95, just because a lot of guys throw it doesn't mean it's easy to hit. Locations, what a guy's maybe thinking in the box when he's struggling, how he's feeling when he's going good, outfield reads. There's just so much to the game that you don't realize that until you go step out and then your kid starts playing. Yeah. And you start seeing other people's perspective on baseball. Johnny's dad, he played in high school, and Johnny's dad knows a lot about baseball, and you're like, whoa, why are we doing that one? And then you try to teach young kids and you're like, they don't even know what I'm saying. Start talking about staying connected and different terminology. It's like that's a foreign concept. So I think it's cool to be able to kind of bring some of that to a broadcast. But yeah, player's perspective, especially the way I was, because I was talented, but I wasn't like the number one prospect and could just get by on pure athleticism alone. I had to figure out the game inside of the game, run the bases well, play good defense, learn how to put good at bats on guys who were better than me, pitchers that had really good stuff. So that part of it helped me too.
Well, you talk about like how complicated the game is, and nobody's disputing that. But one of the things about your style is that you kind of boil it down to its like simplest form. So when we first met Austin, we were talking about you, the broadcaster, and I was like, he just talks like, look fastball, 0-0. And if you get fooled, oh well, it's only 0-1. But if you're looking fastball and you connect, then it's worth it. Like simple stuff like that. Is that always how you thought the game? Like, coming up and then in the big leagues and, really your whole life. Did you always kind of approach it that way? Because broadcast, you do have like a simplistic style that I think connects with the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, if it's not simple, I can't execute it. I'm just not that smart. Like, some of these guys have these PhD philosophies and they're talking about, launch angle and spin rates. And I'm like, that's awesome news. But how does it translate to usable information? Like, in my whole life, like, if I can't use it, why know it? Like, even stats, like in business, it's like they start talking about these numbers, dude. I'm like, what's that mean? And how do I apply it? Like, I don't want to know. I don't need to know about this percentage variable 0.78% of this person said this. I'm like, no, because if you can't take action on it, it's meaningless. So, like, when I played, I knew that the simpler I made it, the easier it was to execute. So when in doubt, I was fastball, going to hit it back up the box. Like, because what would always happen is you start thinking a lot about your mechanics and you start thinking about the pitcher and his pitches and how many angles he's bringing. And next thing you know, you're not really even being able to be athletic and react. So I just took away my God-given ability and I handed it to the pitcher. Because now I'm not being an athlete. And when you're an athlete, there's certain things, like I see some of the guys today, when they get into the athletic positions and they just use that God-given ability, and because they've swung the bat 500 million times and they get in that good athletic position, boom, things happen. But when they try to get cute and they're standing there and I'm going to get my bat path just like this right here. And then boom, and foul ball. Sometimes you have to look ugly in the box, man. Like, sometimes you're going to be way out on your front foot, but you just use your hand-eye and just let it happen, and you get a base hit, And for me, I think for most people, if you can simplify complicated concepts to where you can actually use them, it's beneficial. Because if a concept's so complicated that you can't apply it, who cares? And like, go back to first principles. A lot of times what I've learned is the more you can eliminate, the better off you are. So if your brain's thinking about 500 million things, a lot of those don't even matter anyways. Like, when you talk about what works for one guy, it's not going to work for another guy. Some guys, you tell them, hey, you got to hit the top of the baseball. Like, you got to come, like, your bat path come down on the ball. Well, in today's game, people would say that's taboo. You don't say swing down on the ball. That's bad. Well, for some guys, when they do that, what it does is it gives them the right bat path.
Yeah.
Of course, they're swinging up on the ball. They're still getting launch angle. They're creating space, but they're on their back leg too much, and they're coming down here trying to create the angle instead of letting the angle happen with momentum, right? Yeah. For instance, it's like what you feel and what is real are two different things. Boom. You can feel like your hands are this high, and you go back and you look and your hands are really normal.
Yeah.
So that's the game inside the game with your head that you're constantly playing. And what I've learned is the simpler you can make that game with yourself, you can actually achieve the goal, right? You want goals you can achieve. So if I'm thinking hit the ball up the middle and I hit a hard ground ball to shortstop, hey, I still accomplished my goal. I hit the ball hard. Yeah, it was a ground ball. I'd rather have a line drive, but I still have something to work off of. And that's why I never really slumped a ton. I never had like long extended slumps like you see some guys go through.
So, okay, like you were saying about, like what doesn't work for one guy, it might not work for another guy, and we kind of spoke a little bit yesterday, joked around about, how the game has just evolved, the pitching, strike zone, all that stuff it's just so different than when we played. But do you think that there's some of the information that is used now, do you think that could have helped you if you would have understood it? Because I always think back at like, at the tail end of my career when a lot of this information was really starting to, be integrated in the game. And I was kind of like you. I'm like, I don't want all of that. I don't. It's too much. Like you said, I just want to be an athlete up there. But then you see there's some guys that it's actually, you know, it extended their career or it changed their career. You know what I'm saying? Like you got a guy like who I'm thinking, Justin Turner, you know, guy who kind of revamped his career and, you know, went on to be like a superstar. So guys like that, where that information was, they bought into it. Do you think that if you would have understood some of that stuff a little bit, you would have at least tried it and maybe try to apply it to your game a little bit?
Yes. 5,000%, because I was willing to listen to the guy at the Taco Bell drive-through when I was not sitting there. Hey, Dirks, you know what you need to do is your elbow needs to go
hey.
And the cage, my elbow's up, right? So I think it boils down to if you can get this great information, because today's game's got way better information than we had. When you start talking about spin rates and what we know now, the game today, the hitters know what the pitchers are trying to do more so than we did. They have these iPads that have every at-bat they've ever had. They can go to exactly the pitcher whenever they face them, whatever it is, whatever they want, they have, right? What's the guy done in his last game? What was his pitching percentages and things like this? But also, I think with your swing, I think the biomechanics, the understanding of biomechanics has accelerated to a level now that hitters can use. So before, it was like the information wasn't as usable, and we didn't grow up with it.
Right.
Now, the guy who's in the big leagues now that's 25, he started using this information when he was 15.
Yeah.
So that's a huge difference. So it's not a foreign language to him. Like when we were like, hey, hit the nail, you know, he knows when they say like the degree of this bat angle, he understands that concept because he's been around it. Right. So you could say, man, why am I hitting so many ground balls? Well, let's look at your path. Is it your timing or your path? It's one or the other. Right. Yeah. Because if you're hitting too many ground balls, if you're late, you're going to hit more ground balls. That's just a fact. And then also what pitch selection. I think pitch selection now is way more dialed in than when we played, for sure. They can look at these pitches and say, hey, this is where your hot zone really is, Austin. Like this ball up and away, like that is not for you. Do not swing at that ball. Don't think about swinging at it. You don't have to hit that ball. Trust that the pitcher is going to make a mistake in your zone, right? As opposed to when we played, it was kind of like, man, I got to learn to cover all these. Yeah. And I got to hit homers and do extra base power with all these different pitches. And that was frustrating, especially when guys started throwing up in the zone more for us. It's like we've hit the ball down our whole life. First pitch, down and away fastball. Like that's where pitchers pitch. Sinker down and away, whatever. So we grew that swing. Now all of a sudden in about 2011, 12, 13, right in there, they changed the strike zone. They went up with it. Guys started throwing more four seams with high spin rates up there. And that swing just isn't our natural path because we're used to coming down through the ball and starting that bank down here. We didn't know that you could Coco crisp it, you know, get
it up here. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, whack it like that, right? So Coco knew that. He was a little ahead of his time with this swing. But no, the information that these players have, I think it's finding the balance, though. Like, because there is a point where when your brain is cluttered, you don't see the ball. And if you don't see that baseball coming in, man, I don't care. I don't care how pretty your swing is. I don't care how locked in you think you are with my mechanics and all this. The ball's going to come in, and if your eyes aren't picking it up and seeing what's a good pitch to hit or not, and then being on time, you're toast. So there's those different elements, and that's where these guys can work on the offseason. They're working in spring training right now to try to hone in. Like you see Torque just hit another homer today, but he kind of changed his posture. He got a little up, and what's funny was in the interview, he said, yeah, I'm kind of just going to that old school approach of trying to hit the ball the other way. It's like, yeah, it still works. Man.
Yeah, oh yeah.
If you're hitting the ball the other way, your bat path's working right. That's all that is. So in his mind, looking to hit the ball the other way is getting his bat path on the right plane.
Andy, I actually wanted to ask you about Spencer Torkelson. Obviously, one of the most interesting storylines for the 2025 Tigers. Guy who's having a really good spring. What do you think the mindset is for a player like that, a former top prospect who's now kind of on the edge, on the roster bubble, and having to make some significant changes?
Yeah, I've never been a 1-1. Austin wasn't a 1-1. We don't know the 1-1 life. Austin, what round did you get drafted in? You were high though, right?
Eighth. I was 8th round.
8th?
Yeah.
See, I was an 8th rounder. We were 8th rounders. We don't know about the 1-1 life. But with him, he knows it's a make or break year. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. He's past prospect status now, right? As far as age is concerned. And he's gotten a good amount of opportunity in the big leagues. One of the problems is he plays a position that you have to hit consistently. Like if he's a solid outfielder, that bat's manageable. But when you're going to roll out and play first base every day, you got to thump. Like there's no way around that. You got to hit for some power, and you got to be consistent in the box. And he's shown signs of improvement. He's also shown signs of stubbornness, like throughout his career, where he'll get to hitting the ball well with that old school approach, trying to make sure he's working through right center field. And then all of a sudden he's just pull happy, and he wants to pull that baseball so much because he's got good power. I'd say for first base, it's average. Like he's not like plus power.
Sure.
Like he's not hitting the ball, 440 feet to right center oppo or dead central, but he's got plenty of pop. But what happens is then all of a sudden he gets feeling good, and then he goes back to that pull mindset. But right now in spring training, he's locked into that right center gap. And then every time he gets an advantage count, he's hitting it, changes his posture. He's come up a little bit. But in the interview, he seemed pretty relaxed. But it's easy to be relaxed when you're banging, when you're hitting. It's what's he going to do depending on how the roster works out, if he's playing first base and he gets to Detroit, when he's hitting good, everybody's happy, no big deal. It's when that first struggles come through the season. So when he hits his first 0 for 12, 0 for 15, 1 for 15, gets up with the runners in scoring positions 4 times in a row, punches out twice, hits 2 weak ground balls. How's he deal with that? Because that's the Torkelson that we need to see on the other side still be able to compete. I don't care if he gets out. I just want to see competitive at bats. Like if I'm management, if he's putting competitive at bats day in and day out, I live with that because the numbers are gonna come. It's those stretches of kind of non-competitive at bats, gets in his own head, easy Ks, and you go from a guy who's just raking to a guy who strikes out like 8 out of 10 times on at bats where it's like he's not even there, right? So that's all Torque's got to do, just get that consistent element in there.
100%.
Well, keeping with the topical stuff, the Tigers right now are more or less down 2 center fielders, 3 if you with the back tightness with Wenzel Perez. We got 2 outfielders here, Cody. So I kind of figured like have you either of you guys, Andy or Austin, experienced a shoulder strain like Matt Vierling's going through and it's his throwing arm, right, Cody? Right, it's his throwing arm, and then with Parker Meadows, an upper nerve issue. Again, on his throwing arm. You guys have any experience with those injuries? What that's even like for those guys?
Go ahead, Andy. You got it.
Yeah. No, I've been where I can't even throw a baseball. There's times the one advantage to the outfield is you only have to hopefully make 4 or 5 throws max. Some games you don't make any. And what you got to rely on is, all right, I got 2 in the tank today. I'm not even playing catch. I'm not even warming up. Hey, Austin, I'm not even in between innings. It's like, I'm good. Play with the ball boy. Right? So there's times that you're going to be dealing with these injuries. And obviously in spring training, you're not going to push through, right? That's not the time to be the tough guy. But there's times where everybody's arm's hanging. Shortstops, infielder, outfielder, first, it doesn't matter. Pitchers, they're going to have arm issues. Number one thing, with the nerve issues, make sure that's straightened out. Number 2 is for Vierling. Vierling can play third too. Now that's a different position. You cannot at third base have a arm that's bum or not performing. That's a long throw. If you've ever went behind third base on a big league diamond and where they play and look to first, you're like, what? They throw it that far, that accurate every time, right? So for me, it's like, hey, just get it serviceable, be able to hit the cutoff, man. Parker Meadows doesn't even have to throw the ball. I don't care. The way he can go get it in center, like just run it in. Like, he can go get it. Like, he's going to save more runs by going and getting it than he ever will with his arm, right? And that'll also, because I think what we really don't, we would prefer to put Riley in left. Center field's a lot of miles. That's a lot of miles. And Riley, he's a bigger guy. You know, that many miles on Riley, and he's had some injuries. He's had some shin problems and stuff. Try to limit his miles, keeping him in left as much as possible. He'll probably play a little bit in center to start the year. But yeah, as far as throwing, man, look at Johnny Damon had a really good career, and that dude couldn't throw it 90 feet, man. So if you can go get it, I don't care how you throw it. You know, they'll take the extra base once in a while, but make up for it with the glove.
Yeah, no, everything you said. It's about being just smart with it. You know, just hitting the cutoff, man. Making the best throw for that situation. Like you said, trying to be a hero when you know something is, you got a hanging arm. Nothing's good ever going to come from that. And that's basically that's what we're doing anyway. We're just trying to manage the runner from going to the extra base. And it's just about hitting that cutoff. Hey, you're an infielder. When I throw it in there, you're an infielder. You got to be able to field the ball. If it's a little low, you know, I'm keeping that boy low. I'm skipping it in there. If my arm is hanging. It's plenty of throws where I'm like, you're an infielder. When this ball come in, it's going to be low. I'm telling you that right now. So you better start working on them scoops because that's where this ball comes in. I'm telling you right now. So, nah, man, it's tough. It's tough, man. But, you know, when we played through a lot of injuries. You know, everybody did. And that's kind of how it was. You weren't coming off the field. So whether that was the best thing probably for us, probably not. I think guys are a lot smarter now with taking care of their bodies, you know, and there's a lot more information and a lot more ways to get you out there. You know, this just evolved since we played. So I think these guys are doing the right thing by making sure it's ready to go and that they're healthy when they get out there.
No doubt. And Austin makes a good point. As an outfielder, it's game management. So we had good pitching staffs in Detroit when we played, and we knew like our goal was to keep runners from advancing as many bases as possible. Like we weren't out there to try to gun guys down at home and throw it to the backstop and let guys take extra bases. We ran balls down and we kept the ball in the pitcher's hand as much as possible. So you see the guys that do the diving play and, you know, in front of them and the ball skips behind them. Like, no, the way we played, that's dumb. Like, if you do that, you're dumb. You got Verlander or Scherzer on the bump, and you just gave a guy a leadoff triple. Keep the guy on first. Keep the double play in order. Like, don't be an idiot. And then when the diving play comes, it comes.
Yeah.
Off to the side, whatever. But that's a really good point. With the pitching staff the Tigers have, outfield play is go get it and keep your throws low, manage the game.
And Tigers do tend to rank near the top in terms of the percentage of fly balls converted to outs. Their positioning tends to be really good too. But let's have some fun, Andy. What kind of teammate was AJax?
Oh, I loved AJ, man. AJ he was really good at keeping the clubhouse relaxed. Because I don't know if you know AJ very good enough to know that he's got a decent personality, and he can be funny on occasion. Sometimes we laugh just because, you know, to make him feel good. So AJ's hilarious. He had great impersonations of people, and AJ always had a smile, no matter how we were doing. Because in a long season, man, there's some tough days to get up. You know, it's like, man, I got to put the clown suit on and go out there and play again today. Like, and for people who've never done it, it's like, man, I would love to, you know, have my passion be my work. And we love baseball, but it's a long season. There's the same guys in the clubhouse day in and day out. Some of them drive you nuts if you let them, and you got to build those relationships inside the clubhouse are very important. And you got to have guys that you can kind of count on to where when the energy's kind of bleh, or there's a lot of pressure, you know, like, hey, maybe we lost the last 4 games, and we're 2 games out in the division, and we're heading into August, and the media is all, you know, Cody's over there writing, now I don't know if they're going to do it this year. You know, that's your job. That's your job. But but then you know the pressure from the city, you get the pressure on your, and then maybe you're struggling a little bit and you're feeling pressure for your career. And guys like AJ are very important for a clubhouse because they keep it light. They keep your understanding that, man, this is still a game, guys. We're going to have some fun and we're going to make fun of each other and we're going to keep it as light as possible so we can go out and perform, right? Because if you got the stress and the pressure, there's already enough of that. But if you can kind of break that up a little bit, man, it helps guys perform a lot. It's not football. You can't be raw, let's just crush, you know. You do that, you're going to last about 25 games. You're going to be asleep.
How's that go over when a guy does try to do that in the clubhouse? Have like the football mentality, rah stuff. Eye rolls.
No, that I mean, because people like guys aren't dumb. You know, guys figure that type of stuff out. It's like that's gonna last about a week. He's not like Dirks just say he's gonna be asleep here in a minute. Like you better go in there and get you a sandwich, grab you some water. Come over here and maybe put them headphones on and chill a little bit. Listen to some classical music for a little bit, like relax. Because everybody's blood pressure is just skyrocketed. We didn't even know that. Like we didn't even know our blood pressure was bad. But you know, half of us out there dealing with ailments and blood pressure issues, and like Andy said, man, like the clubhouse was like the best place for us. Like it from top to bottom, like. Guys that didn't speak English that well, it didn't matter. Like we were such a close-knit group in there. And that's super. You're around those guys more than you're around your family. So you rely on those relationships, those stories, those old school stories from some of the veterans, you know, and just clowning on each other, keeping things light. Man, you have to have that. It's monotonous every day to come in there and just take it serious every single day. We're gonna joke around. With me, we're joking. Like I needed that for myself too, for my own personal, you know, sanity. Like I needed to laugh, and I just feel like bringing that laughter. If I could bring that to somebody else, I mean, lighten up their day, because you don't know what guys are going through off the field. You know, everybody's going through their own personal issues that you're having to bring to the stadium. So if you're able to, you know, be around a bunch of guys that can keep it light, and we're all after the same objective, then you know that's the goal, man, to go out there and enjoy playing with one another. You know, you got my back, I got yours, and I'm gonna pick you up when you're down. Hopefully you do the same with me. So that's how we were, man. The clubhouse we had great clubhouse every year.
Andy, I'm curious for your perspective on this. And you know, you and Austin kind of fell into this category for a lot of Tigers fans back in your days, but is there a guy on this year's Tigers team where it's just like, you know what, I just like this guy's game? It's not necessarily he's the best. It's not necessarily he's your favorite, but it's just like this guy playing the game. I just like it. I just like watching this guy play.
Yeah, they're so young. I feel like it's funny because now I'm 39 and I go in the clubhouse and I'm like, dude, these guys are young. Was I that young when I played, right? I like Vierling's game. I've always liked Vierling. He's a competitor and he's steady. Like he's a guy, you put him out there, you know what you're going to get. Solid right-handed bat. He plays good defense. He's a good clubhouse guy, good team guy. He came over from the Phillies, right? So he wasn't like up through the system. Like some of these guys have been up through the system. So they have that super like tight knit, like Torque and Riley and these guys. I mean, they literally grew up together in baseball. And then you get a guy like Vierling who's kind of come from the outside into the organization. And he is like a plus human, right? And he's a guy that every time AJ puts him in, he just keeps playing. Other guys go down, he just kept playing. He just keeps playing. And those are kind of the unsung heroes, I think, sometimes of organizations. And obviously, we have some super exciting young talent, like Parker Meadows. The way, like, I played with Austin, who's the best center fielder I ever played next to. He's got that same ability. Like it's this weird ability. Yeah, he's fast and he's long, but like he can just get to the ball. Like there's certain guys and there's just a handful of them in the big leagues that can just get to the ball. It's like between the read and their speed and the kind of that sense that they have when they roam center, to where what it does is it helps you move away from them if you play the corners. So like when AJ's playing center, I know I can move away from AJ because AJ's got the gap more than most other guys would ever get, which allows me to take away more line or shallow. So like that's why Verlander and Scherzer were good at all. I mean, without me and Austin, those guys are probably just, not even household names. They'd be kind of, fringe guys. And we turned them into all-stars. It's pretty, now they're both Hall of Famers. So, when you can play next to guys, but go back to your question. For me, Vierling's kind of a glue guy for the team. He's got some experience. He's been in the postseason twice now. He's a plus dude. Younger guys can come to him. He's an open book. But yeah, that'd be my probably glue guy.
Yeah, I mean, you said it for me. I'm probably a little biased, but Meadows, man, it's something about the easiness of the way he goes and gets it. I mean, he has really an uncanny ability to just get to the ball. And I'm sure that he is fast. I mean, I don't know if you line him up on the line and you run the 60 if he blows it out the water. I'm not sure. But it's the athleticism, the easiness that he gets to the balls. And it looks like he's just chilling. Like, it looks like this is just another day at the yard. Like, literally, like you hit a ball out there and I'm just going to go get it. There's not a lot of jazz and all this showiness. Although I like his energy though. We talked about that one day. I was like, hey man, I like that energy, man. Like, that's something I wish I would have shown a little bit more of. But yeah, it's just something about watching a guy in the outfield that's just able to go just get the ball. And it looks like they're not even really trying. And he has that ability. So that's my guy.
Andy ever run into you in the outfield, Austin?
Nah. We were so on the same page, man. Like, that's another thing. Like, we're looking all the time. We're constantly looking, checking, and seeing the distance that we have between each other. But Andy, I already know he getting ran over if he hit me. It's solid. It's solid over here, brother. You know what I mean? It's solid.
In 2011, there's a lot of things I might call Austin. It wouldn't have been solid.
There you go. That's all right. I got you.
Lanky, maybe. No, we had good chemistry because Austin's smart too. So he's not just fast. So some outfielders are fast, and I've played with a lot of different guys out there. And some guys are super fast and they're athletic, but they're not that smart. They're dumb when it comes to understanding the read and whose ball's where and where the guy was before the ball's hit and who's hitting and who's pitching. Like, there's a lot that goes into it to understand a situation. I was thinking yesterday, did me and Austin ever screw a ball up? And there was only one I could think of. I think it was in Cleveland. There was a ball hit to left center, and we kind of converged. And at the last minute, we kind of both pulled up, and the ball hit. And I think that was our, first year playing together. And after that, we could kind of looked at each other, and it was like, unsaid, that'll never happen again. It was one of those moments that was kind of like, oh, okay. I didn't realize how much range Austin had. Because when you don't, coming up through the minor leagues, you play with some other guys that are pretty good, but nothing like elite center field, big league center field type of speed. So when I was on that ball, like, all of a sudden I realized Austin's there, and I'm like, what? Like, why are you here? You were over in right center. You shouldn't even have been here, and he could have caught it. And then I go, whoa. So I had to learn, that range ability is much different with a guy like Austin than guys I'd played with in the minor leagues, which when I hit, I noticed it on the other side of the ball. Because you get to the big leagues, man, I hit a ball up the middle in Kansas City one time, a little ground ball. It almost hit, I think James Shields was pitching. Boom, right off the mound. Whack, hard skip. I'm kind of going down to first. I start to round a little bit. That Escobar dude, he Gumby arm out there. He turns, he throws it behind his head, and boom, I'm out. And I was like, that never happened in the minor league. That's a hit. And that should have been a hit. That should be illegal. So you get to the big league level as a defender in the outfield or wherever, you have to learn. So if you're playing against next to a guy like Parker Meadows or Austin Jackson, if you're on the corners, you have to be aware of who's playing center. Like if Winslow Perez, he's not going to range as far as Meadows, right? So if you're playing left, I can go get it a little more in the left center gap. Because the key is, if you got an elite center fielder, get out of their way. So a lot of times if a ball's hit to left center or kind of left, short left center, and Austin's in center, my immediate break is not to the ball, it's to back up. Mm-hmm. Where if another guy's playing center, my immediate break's to the ball to make sure that he's tracking first. Then if he's tracking, I'll cut. But I had trust in Austin. I know if Austin was in center, I know if he can get to it, he's going to get to it, or it's going to be really close. I give him the full rein on that because he's got a better chance of making the web gym than I do, and I'm coming around the backside. And that's to manage the game, because even if Austin misses and I get there quick, I still maybe have a chance at second, right? I mean, that's different level, boys.
That's high level
up there in them big
high
league.
level.
Big league, that's some different baseball.
Oh my gosh.
Well, why don't we wrap up with this? We appreciate, Andy, you taking time with us. Expectations for this year's Tigers squad, coming off a playoff berth, breaking the streak, both berth and winning a postseason game. More or less the same team, a couple of different changes here and there, but more or less the same team. What are your kind of your expectations for this season?
Well, I think they should win the Central. I mean, the Central's tough. You got Cleveland and Minnesota. They're not slouches, right? And they're going to play both those teams. The Central beats each other up pretty bad, and the Central's got really good pitching throughout, so especially in them top three teams. But I think with our pitching that we can roll out, our bullpen, man, is so deep. Like, it just keeps getting deeper and deeper, and you keep seeing guys. And I know that, like, throughout the course of the season, like starting pitching, we got, 3 guys that we know or should be pretty legit. And then 2, who's it going to be? But we have lots of options there. But, man, if you can have a bullpen, I remember Kansas City in like 13, 14, 15, and all of a sudden you get to like the 6th inning and it's over, man. Like, they start rolling dudes out, and you're like, man, this is Obrisky, Vest. You see Hannafy pitching today. If he's throwing sinkers like that, like, that's a different level of stuff. Lots of good arms out of the bullpen makes for a really tough squad to beat consistently. And then offensive production, you get everybody a new year. You got Gleyber Torres, who's on an earn it year. He chose to go on an earn it contract, which speaks a lot. I mean, he could have took a cushier, longer term deal, but he's wanting to put a year out that puts him on the radar in free agency next year. Torkelson's on a prove it year. So these guys got a lot to play for. And when you got stuff to play for, all of a sudden that bat might speak a little bit more. I think win the division is I don't see what other goal there would be for this team after what they did last year.
Yeah, well said. Well said. All right, well, you guys can follow us on all the socials and YouTube at Tiger Territory, and you can follow Cody on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Cody Stavenhagen. I'm at Kieran_Steckley. Andy, where can people find you?
You can find me at AJax10 on Twitter, my fake Twitter handle that I act like Jackson. No, Twitter, I think X is Andy Dirks 12. I got an Instagram, the real Andy Dirks. Yeah, that's one of those. Yeah, I'm that guy.
Not to be confused.
Andy Dirks out there.
REAL. I saw it. I saw Todd Jones had the not fake Todd Jones, and then after I did mine, I realized I'm like, Todd Jones is like 50 years old. Why am I? Oh, Andy, you got to ask the 20-year-old about the social media, not the older guy. Right? But Todd's always like, my social media, man, I got 2,000 followers on it. Look at that, I'm like, Todd, I don't think that's like a lot, is it? He's like,
that's nothing.
Oh my goodness. On that note, what a great way to close. Cody Stavenhagen, Austin Jackson, I'm Kieran Steckley. Thank you again to Andy Dirks for joining us. I want to remind everybody to have a great weekend.